going away. So Lally's 17 and a half when she writes her matric exams. She gets A's in English and history, B's in biology, geography, Afrikaans and mathematics. It's a good result, adequate, more than adequate, to get her into university. Her parents would struggle to put her through university. Ostrich farming never really survived the invention of the motor car, whose breezier exhilarations led to the abandonment of large feathers in hats. But Lally applies for, and is awarded, a teaching bursary. Okay, now in those days, they needed teachers, so what they would do is they'd give you a bursary for 4 years, and then afterwards you would be required to teach back the number of years that you had studied. So this is quite a good thing for her. She's able to do what's expected of her, take her good results, leave school and go and become a teacher. Bearing in mind, of course, that Lally hates school and she hates all that it stands for. She's been in an institution since she was 6 years old, and she's bucked against that all the way along. She hasn't fitted into that. Okay, then just before she writes her exam, she gets a windfall, so something lucky happens to her. It's £1,000. Now you can imagine in those days, £1,000 was a lot of money. And this gives her options. She starts to think about other things that are open to her, besides having to go to university. So she starts to think about Europe, and she tells her mom that she's going to Europe. Her mom's not pleased with her at all. She says it's a waste of time and that she's too young to go alone. Lally says to her that she's always been alone, and that's quite prophetic, or quite profound in a way, because she has been, and loneliness is something that's characterized her whole life. The child is obdurate, stony, unrelenting, and it wearies her mother to try to contend with her. So it's a hassle for her mom to try and deal with this difficult teenager, or almost post-teen. This is a pig, by the way. He's holding the page for me. Okay. And then you get this quite insightful line that says that the time for mothering is past without having been comprehensively entered into. And this comments on the relationship she has with her mother. Her mother has never really been a proper mother. She sent her away when she was very young, and they've never really had a good relationship. Even so, her mom tries, and a battle is waged. Lally sends away for a passport, but when the package arrives in the post office box in town, Lally's mother appropriates it. So she takes it away and she locks it away in her desk type thing. Lally says nothing, but when the servant sounds the gong for lunch, still quite colonial, she would have rung the bell and they would all have to go down to lunch, she's nowhere to be seen. Remember that Lally's only means of controlling her life is through what she eats and what she doesn't eat. She'll eat when she's hungry, advises Lally's father, which proves untrue. Days go by, and there's a song of air in Lally's ears, an ethereal sensation of imminent victory. So victory is close for her, and she realizes that if she goes on this hunger strike, she's going to be able to win over her parents. Her mother complains that she's being unfair, so what Lally's doing is inconveniencing her. Lally shrugs, and these very important words here, fair and unfair, are just words. The only thing that matters is will and comprehension. And this serves to be true of a lot of what happens in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission as well. One day, the Song of Air is an opera. Okay, so she has this light-headed sensation, which is almost like a song, where instead of being something negative, it's something positive to her because it's bringing her closer to what she wants. So she is very strong-willed. She's able to achieve what she wants to achieve. Okay, so she falls into a swath of long grass beside an ostrich pen, and when she wakes up, she is in hospital. And under a coloured under sister, a posy of everlastings in a glass jar. A day later, the package is on her bedside table and a sour, defeated expression on her mother's face. So her mother's given in. She realizes that this child can't last much longer, and she gives her passport. Lally goes to the airport, and she harkens back to that sensation of anticipation that she would get when she would look at the map of the world in the lunch hall at school. And she continues with this sensation of excitement all the way to London. She's running away from that which she knows and everything which confines her. And she's filled with the euphoria of being overseas for a while. She sees all the wonderful sights. She's obviously been to London and Paris. We see Peggy's dying there. And for once, she abandons control. It is the one time in her life that she eats voraciously and being careless and invigorated. In the second month, this intoxicated state subsides. A new and more complicated condition comes over her. So her honeymoon period overseas is over. Okay, so now the feeling that before was a form of joy is more like depression. It needles her, pointing always towards her future. So it's saying, where are you going to? What now? What have you achieved? And despite being where she is, she doesn't achieve what she has hoped to achieve. And she starts to think of her future. I'm going to university is one of her options. Pim always does the right thing. He's been to university, he's been to UCT, he works crazily, he's always at his books, and he gets the class medal for both years. He does what is expected of him, and he achieves. She decides that after university she'll be qualified to be a schoolmistress. But remember that school is what she hated, and this idea seems almost abhorrent to her. Sometimes she sees other South Africans. She recognizes them by their insistent braying voices and their obsession with weather conditions. Okay, so she listens to them and she tries to get ideas from them. In the youth hostel she stays in, she finds other Europeans and Americans. They come from all over the world, and she listens to their stories, and their worlds are so different from hers. When they realize that she's South Africa, they express a moral outrage. They assume that she too is racist. So they are then showing stereotypes, typical sort of prejudice towards her as well. Okay, some of them almost sympathize with her. And she starts to lie about where she comes from. She says Zambia or Botswana or Lesotho. Okay, by the third month, she says she has two choices. She can either be a citizen or an activist. So she can conform or not. It's like black and white. So she's a citizen, she shuts herself down, she does what she's supposed to do, she conforms, which she's never really been good at. Studentship, schoolmistress, marriage, all those institutions, which she doesn't enjoy. She's not too sure what it means to be an activist. She knows that you have to become one of those terrible, unnatural women like Ruth First, who was supposedly an insurrectionist. And she's not quite sure how she would have to do that, how she would go about becoming an insurrectionist who would put bombs in strategic places. And she follows her third choice, which is more of a default than a choice. And she decides ultimately that she is not going to leave London. She's going to stay there. We have this description of Hyde Park where it says, the frigid brown water in the ponds, the fluffed up ducks, the still blade of grass, scruffy with tramped sleet, The pale grey clouds dull into pewter, and the school stock grey, and a park van motors up to her, and the park warden advises her that the gates are closing shortly, almost prophetic of the choice that she has to make. She either has to go back or she has to decide to stay here. And she decides in the middle of the night, well, she just doesn't get up when she's supposed to, and she moves out of this youth hostel and decides that she needs to live in a shared house. So this is the next step towards permanency, the closest she'll get towards permanency. And she decides not to return to South Africa. So she has made a choice almost by default.